Hello, Blazers Edge readers, Trailblazer fans. Welcome to our first 2014 edition of the Blazers Edge Videocast. I am Sam Tung, along with editor Dave Decker. Dave, I'm out here in the Midwest where it's a little chilly, but I'm hoping that you're staying a little warmer there in the Northwest.
Yeah, the inland Northwest is right around freezing, but not too bad. Not as bad as you guys are getting it back there. Hope you're staying safe. And did you have a nice holiday?
I did. Yeah, it was great up until the negative, 40 or 50 degree wind chill that we've had this week. So no, but it was good. Went home to Portland for a couple days and spent the New Year here. So, but things are good. So a lot of Trailblazer news to get to. We've been off kind of on our New Year holiday from the Videocast. So a number of topics to get to. Obviously, your emails are the main topics of these videocasts. If you have an email that you would like to send to us, the way to do that is just like every email, blazersub@gmail.com is the place that you can send those emails. And as usual, Dave answers those both in a text form at least once a week, and then we also do these videocasts every couple weeks or so. So again, blazersub@gmail.com is the place that you can send those. Dave, a lot of things to get to. As we're talking, the Trailblazers suffered a couple tough losses, close losses. One of the couple topics I wanted to get to before we got to the emails. The first one, so many close losses for the Trailblazers this season. I mean, it's just been unbelievable how many games they've either lost at the buzzer or haven't been able to finish at the buzzer to lose these games. Kind of wanted your general thoughts here as we head into the new year for a team that, for the most part, has been staying in most of the games that they've been playing.
Well, I mean, you've hit on it there, and I'm not sure it's so many close losses as much as a very high percentage of the times the Trailblazers do lose, it's in a close game. And that's good news. I mean, if you're going to lose, you want to lose by one or two. As much as it breaks your heart, it meant you were one shot away from winning. It's easy to forget also, though, that the flip side of that is the Blazers have had a lot of close wins. Their margin of victory is actually fairly good. It's up there close to the elite teams in the league. But observationally, you know that 3, 4, 5 wins this season have hinged on the opponent's shot rattling off the rim or somebody missing a 5-footer. So it goes both ways. And I think that's important for the Blazers in a couple of ways. First of all, most of the time it's going right for them, which is good news. But second, when you get to the playoffs, you're not going to get a lot of blowout wins or losses. You're going to have a lot of close games. So the more experience you can get right now, the more confidence you can get right now winning these kind of games and learning from your losses in these kind of games, the more you're prepared for the postseason. So right now the record's still fantastic, so it's all to the good. Close win, close loss. The important thing for right now is that those games are close.
And it's I think that you make a great point there, Dave. And I think that the playoffs are kind of the gold standard of close games. It seems like every game in the postseason is close, or at least it's going to take you winning a couple of those close games in order to win a series. Which at this point, the goal at the beginning of the season was to make the playoffs, and I think right now that goal has certainly shifted in the new year. But that was the first question that I had for you, Dave. The second one is a more X's and O's type question, and it's about Damian Lillard. And the reason I'm asking you this now, we're about a week removed from it actually happening, but against Philadelphia, the team was down 2, and Damian Lillard had the ball, got the ball on the inbounds play, drove to the basket, and missed obviously a difficult shot, crunch time shot, but he missed the shot. And I just thought to myself, how many times this season have we seen Damian Lillard just struggle finishing at the rim? And if it wasn't just an eye test thing for me, so I actually looked statistically, and this Sports VU software, or the statistics that they have, I don't know if you've ever looked at them, Dave, unbelievable, every little bit of information they have. But they did show that Damian Lillard on drives to the basket is only shooting some 30-ish%, which is one of the lowest percentages in the NBA for the caliber of player that he is. And I was just wanted your thoughts on, it's still, I can still feel it in my mind about thinking, why are you going to the basket? But I wanted your thoughts, A, on Lillard's, finishing ability, and two, probably the idea that he just has to keep attacking because eventually he's going to get some of these foul calls as he's remaining aggressive.
Okay, let's take a second with the Philly game first because that's an interesting case in itself. I don't know if you noticed it watching that game, but the Blazers went away from being the Blazers as that game came to a close. They were really shy around the three-point arc. They played much more conventionally than they have been this season. I mean, come on, if the Blazers are down 2 and the clock is running down, whose hands is the ball in and what's going to happen? It's Damian Lillard, and he's going to shoot a 3 and win the game, right? Or maybe, I think there was one in Detroit where he hit kind of a leaning jumper, send it to overtime. Either way, this is smooth like butter. I mean, this happens all the time. It's dependable. All of a sudden, in the Philly game, everybody's seized up, everybody's tight. Lillard is taking the ball to the rack instead of faking people out and putting up the jumper, and they miss and they lose the game. That was like there was some voodoo in the closet there, or something happened that made the Blazers not the Blazers as that game closed. I hope they learn from that, and I hope they just kind of play free and easy. One of the ways that they can run into trouble, I think, is starting to believe their own record and think, well, we're defending something. We're an elite team, and we've got to play cautiously and like everybody else does. That's not Portland. Portland plays full throttle all the way, not embarrassed to take the 3. Just keep doing it and let the record take care of itself. Now, as far as Lillard, you're right. I mean, it's not his forte. He's not that kind of hyper-athletic, direction-changing guard who can get in the lane and score over any kind of opposition. He is much more comfortable putting up the jumper, and it seems like the longer the jumper is, the more comfortable he is.
Yeah.
That's just his game. He needs to develop the drive a little bit more. But right now, that's going to be a process. I think in probably 3 or 4 years, this won't be an issue. It's hard to remember he's only a second-year guard. It's also hard to remember he's not the focus of Portland's offense this year. I mean, he's a focus, but he's not. It's not like last year where you just throw the ball in his hands and say, go, whatever you want to do, Damian, is fine, experiment. He's playing within the offense now. He's playing within himself, and that means he hasn't had a lot of practice going into the lane. So, that will develop as time goes along. He probably needs to look at Damon Stoudemire's rookie year and how well Stoudemire used the drive and dish. That's an aspect that's missing from Lillard's game. When he puts the ball on the floor, he's almost certainly going to take it all the way to the rim and score it. That has to change so he can fool the defense a little bit, and then you'll see more production, I think, on the drives.
Well, you have to think, too, I mean, you mentioned the addition to his game. That's certainly, in my eyes, watching him play and seeing every time he goes to the bucket, it's reps of real in-game reps of trying to actually finish at the game. And I do think that we forget he is a second-year player. But on top of that, it has to be a little satisfying, or at least I can say personally it is satisfying, even though he has been struggling so much at the rim, to know that within the next couple of years, that is an addition that he can put to his game, especially with his outside shooting ability. I mean, he probably has one of the best pump fakes in the NBA if he wants to use it more often, just because he'll launch it from half court if he wants to. I mean, we've seen how many games this year that he's taken shots from the center court logos of some of these arenas. So if he can add that dimension to his game, he's going to be a real lethal player. But I just wanted your thoughts on that, mainly just because it was such a, I don't know, it was really kind of stuck in my mind, especially looking at that statistic of how how much he has struggled on the drive.
Yeah, absolutely. And you notice it's one of the issues with the Blazers, really. LaMarcus Aldridge has the same thing. We addressed this in a mailbag last week. When LaMarcus puts the ball on the floor, he's scoring. There's nothing else going to happen there. And right now, it's more or less the same way with Damian, practically speaking. That the defense knows exactly what's going to happen once Lillard starts going to the hoop. That'll change for Lillard. It never changed for Aldridge, but Aldridge isn't an in-the-lane player anyway and never will be. But Lillard will, I think, evolve that because that's going to turn him from a really, really good offensive guard to an elite one.
Want to get to some of the emails too. One more time, blazersub@gmail.com, the place that you can send those emails. The first one is a question about the bench, Dave. We actually have a couple questions about some bench players. The first one comes from Daniel, and Daniel asks, after seeing the Blazers experiment with both Thomas Robinson and Myers Leonard as the second backup big off the bench, who do you see as the better option of the two? And so Daniel asking that question, Dave, and he's right. I mean, we have seen some reps from both guys. I think that we, at this point, can pretty confidently say what they bring and don't bring to the table. So your thoughts on the Myers Leonard Thomas Robinson debate?
I'm going to take option C, none of the above.
Yeah. Trade for one.
The Blazers need more help here. And the Blazers, by the way, in my opinion, given the start, given the record, given the potential that they've shown, should be looking to trade one or both of these guys for a veteran backup with more bankable skills. And I understand that's not the move if you're looking 3-4 years down the road, but I don't think the Blazers keep looking 3-4 years down the road at this point. They are winning now. They need to capitalize on that. Robinson is a great rebounder, and he's really crazy making. You never know what he's going to give. He's done pretty well with his shot when he's had it, but he disrupts his own offense as much as the opponent defenders do. So Myers Leonard has gotten better at rebounding. He's obviously got the face-up jump shot, but his defense just lapses for stretches. And I don't know what's in Coach Stotts' mind, but it seems like there's been a couple times recently where Leonard has just been yanked early because the defensive sets have been so poor when he's been part of the rotation. So neither one of them is someone you can depend on right now. Neither one of them is somebody you want to see getting decent minutes or any minutes maybe as you go into the postseason. It just seems to me that any good you make of them is legitimate, but it's kind of like the good you made of Luke Babbitt's three-point shooting. Yeah, that was an asset. Yeah, he did great in what he did, but you didn't want him playing major minutes for your team. Right now, you don't want that for Leonard or Robinson either.
I think that your point, and we're going to have a question about the defense here in a second, but I really think that it does come down to defense. Thomas Robinson is not a rim protector. I mean, he's one of the worst rim protectors in the NBA, and Myers Leonard, as you mentioned, and what we have seen of him, Terry Stotts seems to have a short leash. I don't know if you've noticed this, Dave, but every time Myers Leonard is in the game, it seems like Terry Stotts I'm kind of included in this category to a certain extent. Every time Myers Leonard is in the game, you somehow only watch him. It's like you're waiting for him to do something incorrectly. And I sort of wonder if, in terms of chemistry on the floor, if you're kind of always waiting for him to make a mistake, that can't be good. I mean, obviously it isn't good, but at least when Robinson was on the floor, you knew that he could rebound the ball. But there were times when he would get the ball on offense, and it was kind of the same, I don't even want to look at anything else that's going on the floor. I'm just focused on what's going to happen. It's watching the train wreck that is going to happen. So
yeah, that's exactly it. It happens on different ends of the floor for each player. But it's like watching that little clown car drive into the three-ring circus, and somebody's going to get out who's going to do something goofy, and that's exactly what it looks like when one of these two comes on the floor. Which, to be fair, they're young players. Yes, they're fairly high. I mean, they're both lottery picks, but they're really young. They don't know which way is up. I don't want to bag on them. They're not necessarily supposed to be anywhere different than they are in terms of their development. The problem is the needs and expectations of this team have changed radically over the last few months. And now all of a sudden you don't have the same patience with that, nor do the veterans who are selling their hearts and souls to win these games and to run the plays correctly and to have chemistry and play smoothly. It's not entirely fair to them to not back them up with better players as well. I'm sure they'd never say, at least not publicly. I'm sure that, they're rooting for Myers and Thomas Robinson, I'm sure. But at the same time, you want to support that starting lineup a little more than they're getting supported right now.
Well, let's talk about. I mean, I can 100% agree with you that if there is a need on this team, it's probably at the backup four, or 3/4. A name, big name this week, to be cut by the Chicago Bulls is Andrew Bynum. I understand that he's not a four, but we had a question. Actually, you sent me a question a couple days ago. This was prior to the trade. And wanted your thoughts on, is this the specifics of Bynum? Is he a guy that the Blazers should even bother coming near, knowing their history with injuries? And B, do you think that it's out of the realm of possibility that the Blazers maybe instead look for potentially a backup five and then try to move Freeland to the four and see what that because quite honestly, Joel Freeland I think has been a huge surprise this year. He looked much like Leonard and Robinson did last year, where you just weren't sure what was going to happen. So wanted your thoughts, kind of A, Bynum specifically, and B, the idea of maybe trying to get a backup big and then shift Freeland over the four.
Yeah. As far as the backup big, I think you're right. They need a 4, they need a 5. If they get a 5, Freeland can move to 4. If they get a 4, then at times Aldridge could move to 5 for short spurts. So basically what they have now is they have 3 reliable big men, and one of those is Joel Freeland. So Freeland is great. You're right, he's playing great, but he'd not go on your top 50 list probably of big men that you're looking to play and your team is excited about. That's not to disparage him. I'm just saying, in NBA circles, Freeland has done well, but he counts as a big man, but only kind of. So you've basically got Robin Lopez, you've got LaMarcus Aldridge. End of story. You need to add someone else to that in addition to Freeland in order to make yourself feel really comfortable. And, either position, I think they just need a veteran who can do something and who won't disrupt the flow of the offense or the chemistry or what have you, but can go in there and either rebound or defend or provide some offense. And they have a lot of flexibility there. They could go, they can't afford Pau Gasol, but if the Lakers were trading him, he would be great, obviously. That's like one of the pinnacle players that you could want. Yeah. But the reason I say that is you could go anywhere from there to a Thaddeus Young from Philly to some of the guys in Washington. Any of them would work. The Blazers can work almost anybody in, but they need someone. Now, as far as Bynum goes, the problem with him, a lot of people are talking about chemistry. I don't care so much about that. I think the Blazers can absorb somebody who's a little off. I think they're tight enough, and every team needs that kind of knucklehead guy, and if he's talented, hey, you take a chance on him, I think. The problem is Bynum's just not that talented anymore. Between the injuries and his lack of focus and whatever else was going on in Cleveland, he's shooting horribly. He's posting basically career lows in every category. He's just not bringing that much to the team, which is part of why Cleveland wanted to get rid of him, part of why Chicago is going to cut him. If he had that much left in the tank, these teams probably would give him at least a second look, and it doesn't seem at this point like they really are. So should the Blazers even give him a first look? I suppose if you were desperate, it might work, but between the chemistry, between the injuries, and between the fact that the guy's a center shooting 42%, it's probably not worth the flyer. The Blazers need to get someone probably more solid at this point.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you, especially I think that the lack of focus is a big thing. Hearing that he doesn't even like to play basketball, that's a pretty big issue. And you mentioned it. The injury problems to me are a really big problem. When was the last time Andrew Bynum was a serviceable NBA player? 3 years ago. It's kind of like the Miami taking a chance on Greg Oden to a certain extent, except Greg Oden isn't, I don't think, detrimental to the locker room, whereas Bynum could be the guy that is he good? Would he rip it apart? I don't know, but could he change the culture a little bit? Absolutely. And I think that really the thing that the Blazers have going for them is that chemistry and that culture. So that was a question from Paul, who was asking about Andrew Bynum. I know I didn't mention him at the beginning. He was asking about the trade, but that's the Andrew Bynum business. The next question for you, Dave, want to go back to the bench. A guy that, as of this posting, has a couple reps, and that's C.J. McCollum, and he's a lottery pick, the number one pick of the team. Was pretty spectacular in the D League. I don't know how difficult it is to be spectacular in the D League because I'm not a professional basketball player, but a guy that I think that the team really has high hopes for. Not only short term but in the long term. Kind of wanted the question comes from Nick, and Nick asks, giving your best guess, do you think CJ can have a significant impact off the bench for this team, and eventually earning more minutes than Mo Williams?
Well, yeah, I mean, the question is one of time frame, isn't it? We, as we record this, have not yet had the advantage of seeing him play. That'll happen tonight and tomorrow night, quite probably. And you anticipate that he's going to fill the Mo Williams role and probably take Mo Williams minutes eventually. The question is how soon and how well. And Mo's got the big advantage of experience. Mo has played X number of games with this team now, 34? Mo Williams is Mo Williams, but at least you can rely on him to be that. And, he's done poorly statistically, but reasonably well in terms of giving this team a boost when he needs it. So, understanding that McCollum is talented, understanding that McCollum has similar skills, do you then send him out there immediately to replace the veteran who's already knows what he's doing and has shown that he can do something for you? I would argue that the immediate answer to that is no, you don't mess with a good thing. If the Blazers start faltering, sure, you try it. As the year progresses and you're looking forward to whether Mo is going to be with you next year, for instance, yes, you want to get McCollum more minutes and more time in with the team. Obviously, depth as well. You'd like to be able to bank on him a little bit in case something happens to one of Portland's guards. But his impact is probably going to be longer term rather than shorter term. I doubt, who knows, but I doubt he's going to come back this week against Sacramento and Orlando and then over the weekend and all of a sudden be playing 25 minutes and scoring 20 points. However, next year, training camp, coming out of training camp, you expect that he will have some minutes under his belt, and you will expect he will have a target on Mo's back if Mo is still here. And if Mo isn't here, you expect he will step into pretty much that exact role.
Well, in watching, as you mentioned, we don't have any NBA action to necessarily judge this on, but watching him in the D League for the 2 games that he played, Dave, I was surprised, how long he is. I think that part of that is that the guys in the D League are smaller, so once that he gets into the NBA, that length probably isn't going to necessarily shine through as much. So A, his length surprised me, and B, he really approaches the game as a distributor. At least that was my takeaway, and I could be completely off base on this, but every time I watched him with the ball, it seemed like, and keep in mind the second game that he played, he was by far the best player on the floor, and I think just kind of understood that he had to score if they wanted to win the game. But it did seem like, especially in the first game that he played, when he was starting to get minutes, he was trying to get everyone involved, which I really liked, and I thought, is that something that he's been working on? I don't know, but does that then make him a better match to play with Mo Williams? I think absolutely, because Mo Williams is a guy that, he's the heat check guy. He's the guy that's the streaky shooter that, he'll have the Mo Williams fast break where he'll dribble it up and shoot the 3 on his own. Is that something that CJ is going to be? I don't know, but I was at least somewhat, surprised and satisfied that there was a little bit of that distribution gene in him that I think could potentially be a pretty good match. to, I'm not even talking about taking minutes away from Williams. I'm talking about playing with him in that second unit. That could be a very good, potentially a very good match in the backcourt.
It kind of. I mean, you're right about Mo's rep, and probably that's who he is at heart. But Williams is also a high assist, high turnover guy, and the key to that is when Williams is on the floor, the ball is in his hands an awful lot. Does McCollum need the same thing in order to be effective, or can he play off the ball? In order for McCollum to be a distributor, he has to be holding the rock, and that's not going to happen with Mo on the floor as well. The other concern you have, obviously, and something the Blazers are just begging for in the backcourt, is defense. And I don't think CJ, Mo, Damian Lillard, any of them fit that mold. And this is part of the problem the Blazers have run into recently. Teams have started to catch up to them a little bit. I don't know if you've noticed this, but early in the year, Lillard and Williams was a great combo. I mean, Lillard played off the ball, Mo found him, Lillard scored, Mo scored, everybody was happy. Now you get some of that, but they're paying for it by getting butchered at the other end because opposing coaches are pointing at those two and saying, get them, and the opposing team does. So you have to wonder how much utility McCollum will have in addition to what the Blazers already have as opposed to replacing. Because just as he brings some of the same strengths with maybe a new wrinkle or two, he also brings some of the same weaknesses.
And that's the million-dollar question right now is defensively, how are they going to be able to handle all of this? That's really been kind of the million-dollar question, Dave, all season is, they're the number one scoring team in the game, but can they do it on the other end? Because that's, the defense wins championships cliche, I think is going to become, more evident as we move throughout the season. And McCollum is going to be, if you're going to add a rotation guy, and that might be, we were talking about what if you bring in another piece, that might be the piece that you bring in. I'm not saying a total, a guy that's never touched the basketball before and only knows how to play defense, but I'm imagining that having somewhat of a defensive stopper in that second unit is going to be critical for this team's success.
Maybe having someone who gives you a different look. I mean, that may be in the backcourt. Someone who can defend a little bit, especially if they can shoot the three, although that's a valuable combination nowadays, hard to get a hold of. But even having a different look in the front court would help. I know we had a question about defense in there somewhere saying, asking why the Blazers were, in essence, so inconsistent or so bad at it. And
we did. It's from Russell. He coined it as "let's be nice and say inconsistent," which I really enjoyed. So he's as he asks, is it a lack of focus, communication, or just a commitment thing? And he was a little confused, like what is going on? Is it just a lack of focus, or is it just that they're bad defenders?
Well, what if it's none of the above? What if the Blazers are really good at the kind of defense that they can play, but that defense is not adequate to cover enough situations? And, this is, again, we focus and we center on Robin Lopez because he's the given, okay? As soon as you put Robin Lopez on the floor as your defensive anchor, your number one rule is keep him near the rim. You cannot have him anywhere else. And your number two rule is keep him out of foul trouble. Portland's entire defense is predicated on that, which means exterior perimeter defenders have to channel people a certain way. Lopez has to be in a certain spot, and Lopez cannot commit fouls in that spot, okay, no matter what happens. Those are the golden rules. And when the defense is operating that way, it's usually at least halfway decent, and the Blazers usually win. The problem is when you get a team that, say, can penetrate down the baseline. Now Lopez has to switch sides or just can't switch at all because he can't get there fast enough. The problem is when you've got a perimeter player out there who can go either way off the dribble, and Portland's guards can't juke fast enough defensively to keep them in front of him or contain them to a certain direction. or when you've got a really good pick setter and Portland's guards either have to choose to go around or go with, but either way get behind the guy and then he's free. Those situations, Portland's defense is not adequate to handle, and a lot of NBA offenses have those options. So the Blazers, I think, are pretty good defensively when they're able to set and do what they want. But the problem is they don't have enough variation in their defensive ability in order to compensate for what the offenses can do. Now, solution, part of it might be just to get another big who's more mobile and who can defend differently. Maybe you give up some rebounds or something that Lopez gives you. And I'm not saying you replace Lopez with this guy, but I'm talking about, for 10, 12 minutes a game or even situationally when you're really getting burned. One of the things we've seen is when the Blazers have to take Lopez out against like a Phoenix because he can't guard Channing Frye, who do you put in there? I mean, Freeland is okay, but he's not big minutes okay. They just don't have another answer, and they don't have that mobile big guy that they can shift their defense around. So you go out and get that guy, and then your defense looks a little different. It's able to cover more situations and therefore looks better.
I think your Phoenix example is the example. A team with, as crazy as it sounds, probably the best backcourt in the NBA. The Dragic and Bledsoe are just so dynamic, especially, they might not be the most skilled guys, but in terms of athleticism, they're just such elite players and elite athletes that, that's Robin Lopez, because he has to come out and guard him. You can't just let him have, a wide open lane to the hoop. So to me, it does seem like, I know this is kind of a tangent on what we were originally talking about, but it does seem like, if anything, this team does need that backup 4/5 that can play a little defense. Because it solves two problems. A, if Lopez does get in foul trouble, you have an option to as a stopgap to sort of fill the hole at least temporarily. And B, the second unit needs that guy, that anchor. So if you have Lopez not in foul trouble, then you can run schematically kind of the same look with the second unit. But if you don't have that guy, it's like kind of what you're alluding to is the second unit is just a totally different thing. It's just a completely different story. And when you take Lopez out of the first unit, it's a totally different team defensively.
Yeah, absolutely. Or Spencer Hawes in Philly is another great example. What was Lopez doing in that game? I mean, he had a lot of rebounds. That's great, but he cannot chase Spencer Hawes out there and still keep the Blazer defense intact. And it's funny, you got to look at some of these things too. It's like Lopez is getting a lot of rebounds. Lopez is staying out of foul trouble remarkably well. The Blazers are also giving up more points in the paint than anybody in the league, are giving up a real high percentage, in terms of, points in the paint scored as in terms of the opponent's total scoring. Those are linked. You can't have everything with the lineup you got. You can't have everything that you need. So you have to adjust the lineup so you can begin to get the extended coverage, the extended minutes, a little more freedom for Lopez to play a little more aggressively, especially in one-on-one defense against opposing centers, and bump even a little bit more, try to get a guy out of his spot, and still have enough in reserve to where if he gets in foul trouble, then you can cover for that. Right now, you have to pick an either-or, and the either-or that the Blazers are picking is stay in this mode of defense and give up the paint points. And if you want to cut the paint points, you've got to get them out of that mode of defense, which means adding someone else to provide that new wrinkle and more depth.
I think it's a great point too, Dave. Just the fact that, if there's another guy, Lopez can be a little more aggressive. And to be honest, he's been a huge surprise defensively, at least for me this year. I don't know what the expectations were, but if he has a guy back there that he can take a chance or two every game, because right now he really can't, as you mentioned. I mean, one chance a night could turn into fouls, or a foul that could be a critical one. So, again, that question from Russell, And I think, Dave, any other thoughts on that point, or have we pretty much exhausted
I
that
think
topic?
no, I think we're pretty good. It's just it's kind of a little bit what we said preseason. Robin Lopez is really good at what Robin Lopez does, and the Blazers are not the same without Robin Lopez. They need him badly, and you see it every time that he's off the court. But Robin Lopez can't do what Robin Lopez can't do, and the Blazers need somebody to do that in order to be more secure.
Well, that's going to do it for our emails today. Again, thanks to all the emailers who sent us in questions, not only for the video cast, but continue to send those to Dave for his mailbags that he does on a couple times a week, generally off days. Send those to blazersub@gmail.com. You know, Dave, I forgot to mention it. We are at the end of this. So if you're still with us, Dave, give us the 2-minute Blazers Edge night recap and where people can get more information on that, donate money if they'd like to, just the overall view of the Blazers Edge night before we wrap this up.
Sure, we're sending 1,000 underprivileged kids and their chaperones, teachers, counselors, principals, whatever, to the Washington game in March. And tickets are really reasonable, $5 or $11. Right now, you would need to call Lisa Swan at the Blazers office, and the number is on site under the post with that heading.
We'll include that.
Right there.
We'll include that info on this post too, Dave.
Yeah, the link is right there. If you scroll down from this video, you'll see it. Or you can call our phone number. It's right there too. We will have very soon an online mechanism for you to donate online as well. And we're trying to sell all 1,000 of those tickets probably by mid-February. So we got about a month and a half at this point. And it's a great night. Those kids are really enthused to be there. And it's totally grassroots. We do it. Nobody else sponsored it. It's all Blazers Edge readers getting together to create the next generation of Blazer fandom. So help us out with that. That's one huge announcement. The other is don't forget to follow us all on Twitter. We have @Dave Deckard. We have @Blazers Edge. We have @Sam Tung. We are Twitter mobilized in full force now. It's like a Twitter octopus around here. Everywhere you look, there's a Twitter arm. So follow those accounts as well if you would to keep up on the bone motes and things like that we don't quite get on the site, don't have room for, but fit on Twitter.
You know, I know we've gone a little long here, Dave, but I want to take 30 more seconds and say that 24-hour period that you went through on Twitter to get to like 1,500 followers in a day, I know you compared yourself to Kim Kardashian, which I really enjoyed, A. And B, that was an impressive turnaround. To say the least. Clearly, people are interested in what you have to say, so follow him @Dave Deckard, the newest member of the Twitter sphere.
Yes, I compared myself unfavorably to Kim Kardashian, but I will catch her someday. This is my goal. Before I die, 18,700,000 ungodly followers or whatever she has. It's a huge amount, but we will get there one follower at a time. So if you haven't signed up, go ahead and follow us at Dave Deckard, @Blazers Edge, @Sam Tung, and we will take down the Kardashians from our little inland northwest hive here. So, and Sam, really, when it's you and me, buddy, there is no such thing as going long. So people will eat this up all day, so you just keep it coming. And we certainly will every other week with you. Don't forget, we should mention Chris Lucia's podcasts that are coming out in weeks
Absolutely.
staggered. Check those out, too, because those are great, and those are going to get even better. Blazers Edge is now fully multimedia for your enjoyment.
And actually, speaking of Chris, I don't know if you got to listen to the podcast he did with the Bright Side of the Sun guy, but it was good. I mean, it was like very X's and O's, very in-depth. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm hopefully going to be able to participate on some of those podcasts as well. I'm sure you will too. And maybe we can even get Ben in on the action when he's not staying up extra late to write those media row reports. But anyways, yeah, check out the podcasts. And I, 100% approval from me. I really enjoyed it. Listened to it from beginning to end and enjoyed it a lot. So I think that's going to do it from us. Again, Blazers Edge night. We'll include that information on this post. You'll likely see it just above this video. Additionally, your mailbags, blazersub@gmail.com, the place that you can send those emails, blazersub@gmail.com. Keep sending them our way, and we will continue to answer those here on the Blazers Edge Videocast. So for Dave Deckard, I am Sam Tung. Thank you so much for joining us here. Keep it on blazersedge.com for continuing coverage as we move throughout the season. We will talk to you all soon.